Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one! Another one!
Oladipo!
Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three, and
He hit it!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you from high atop the 18th fairway here at the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. I hope you're having a great day, and if not, hopefully we can get it turned around for you. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody, February 14th, no less, here on this Wednesday. Happy Valentine's Day, Dustin Schutte.
Thank you. I do not have my bag of Reese peanut butter cups, so I'm very upset today.
I see that. Before I get too far in, welcome aboard. Of course, we're powered by Andy Moore Honda. Just go to AndyMooreHonda.com where you can find the best in new and used vehicles, always. And, of course, the Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club, where you can go and sign up, start earning Wow rewards today to great places like BB's Market, your butcher or baker, no matter where you live, with the greatest in custom meats and house-made products around, no question, where you can find us each and every Friday, no less. Looking forward to that as well. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. I hope you're enjoying it and having a good start to it. If not, and everyone has a Valentine and they're getting their little cards and their little, they're not even mints. What are those little hearts that you used to get?
The sweethearts?
Sweetheart. Yeah. What I don't remember what they tasted like.
Chalk with a little message on it?
Yeah, basically it was chalk. That's about what I was like. I'm like, they weren't mint. What the hell were they? They didn't even really have a flavor.
It's kind of
It's the greatest sales scheme in the history of the world. There's just nothing. They just press this stuff together and then they give it to, that's all right. Let's give this to the kids.
Second bet. Well, candy corn also up there. Now, I actually do enjoy candy corn, but it's like one of those things where you just have a handful of it and you're done for a while. But those sweetheart.
Halloween? What are you talking about candy corn?
I'm just saying, when you say marketing scheme, candy corn has got to be up there in terms of top tomfoolery.
Yeah.
Up there with the sweetheart people, because candy corn starts in like September and lasts through Thanksgiving. So the sweethearts are strictly for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Before we get too deep into this, thanks. Well, missed it. Thanks for reminding me, Philip. Late last night, there was a shooting. Well, the shooting occurred around 8:30 or so on the Michigan State campus. And tomorrow's game for Michigan State and Minnesota has already been postponed. All events were postponed for 48 hours on Michigan State campus. Last I didn't check this morning or today yet. I should have. I know that 3 people were killed and 5 injured, 2 were life-threatening. Was the last that I heard on that. Not to bring I don't want to put a downer thought here on this Valentine's Day, but we also cannot go without mentioning this. It's just a horrific thing. I have not been able to have time to check to see. I know that last I heard that the shooter was dead. He had shot himself. So have you seen any more, Dustin?
I saw this morning where I believe that the initial report that you just said was correct, that 3 individuals had died. Multiple were injured. So just thoughts and prayers to all those families and the entire Michigan State community, because that's tough for me to talk about. That's tough for anybody to talk about. But
yeah, and we're not going to make the show about that. You can go to the news for that, but we would be remiss, especially with Michigan State being a part of the Big Ten, Michigan State being a place that Indiana has to go play here kind of soon. So, but yeah, 3 people are dead, 5 wounded, some with life-threatening injuries. the shooting unfolded across two scenes. He went into one building, then he went to another building. The suspect, whom police identified as a 43-year-old man not affiliated with Michigan State, died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. So that's all we have. I mean, just 43-year-old guy. So now I'm like going, what the hell? Well, of course, we'll have to wait to see, let them figure that out. But did not want to go without mentioning that. And like Dustin said, our thoughts and prayers with all the people involved in that. But just a bad thing, especially have to talk about. And more to go through. On the program today, getting to some different things. Bob Kravitz will join us, of course, from The Athletic. Kyle Nedenrip from the Indy Star. And, of course, Rick Bozich.
No, you've got your days mixed up. It's Tuesday.
Damn.
It's Tuesday. We have Mike DeCourcy on today. And Chronic Hoosier.
I don't know why I wrote down Wednesday. And I wrote Wednesday. As soon as I write Wednesday down, I start.
It happens. Hey, so a couple weeks ago, I was doing the same thing. I was a day behind or a day ahead.
Does it feel like, okay, I'm going to throw this out there. I don't know why this is, it just pops in my head. I feel like Valentine's Day is a Wednesday holiday.
It just feels like a waste of time, in my opinion, but in general.
Okay.
It's a lame excuse to do something you should be doing for your wife anyway. Here's the thing. I'm not saying you shouldn't treat your wife.
Oh, nice look.
Nice
comeback. Nice
that
comeback.
Was good, John.
You're lucky your wife doesn't listen to this show.
Clip that part out and then put it on like a mixtape with some Casey and JoJo music or something. That was sweet, John. Look, here, I'll just say this. I don't care. If you like Valentine's Day and you want to do your thing, do your thing. That's awesome. If you hate Valentine's Day, you don't want to do your thing, then that's fine too. Just don't let us yuck your yum. I don't really care.
Speaking of hearts and Valentine's Day, hit that heart button on your YouTube screen. Like our show. I wish it said love today. It should say love. Love the show.
There you go.
Give us all the likes.
Look at
and
Mike.
Subscribe.
Mike was born on Valentine's Day, and it was a Wednesday that he was born on.
See, I'm telling you. It's a Wednesday holiday. I don't know why that always it doesn't matter. It could be on a Saturday. It doesn't matter. I always think of Valentine's Day being on a Wednesday. I have no idea why I have that connection. No clue. That's how it feels to me.
College baseball season starts Friday. Indiana going down to Auburn. That'll be a rough trip, but that's what you got to do. We've got lots more to talk about. Oh no, I thought John would tell us to take a break. He just popped in. Cool. Thanks to everybody up in the region. Hope you're doing well today, listening on 1230 AM, 104.7 FM, WJOB. How you guys doing? Appreciate you. Everyone down in Evansville on the ref, 97.7. Always the right call. And 89.9. Also, down in Marengo, everybody, how you guys doing as well? And wherever you are, however you're listening, we appreciate you from joining us today. Kenny Johnson asking, how does the NBA draft work? They have Trace projected as the 48th pick. Could he make more money from NAL if he stayed in school?
Yes.
Yes, that is a topic we talk about all the time.
Yeah.
Because that's a second-round pick. That's not guaranteed money. And not only that, it's unlikely that you're going to make the squad, that you're going to get shuffled off into either a two-way contract or which means G League. But I think it's going to be close, but the difference is if he can get a contract, but he can't get a guaranteed contract. That's the problem. So it's a tricky question to answer.
It is.
Yes, he could, because he's not going to get a guaranteed contract. And so if he gets any contract that he gets, even though it might be worth more than what he is currently making, that contract can just be voided easily, or cut. So guaranteed wise, yes, I think the answer is yes, he could probably make more money from a guaranteed standpoint by coming back. Right. That would be my answer on that.
Well, I mean, yes, with the way NIL works, I mean, we saw this with Oscar Tshiebwe. I don't know what he was projected to be last year, but I think really if you're outside of a lottery pick, I think that you could potentially make more coming back and utilizing NIL depending on what sort of, accessibility you have to those opportunities. I think that you could earn more money. So it's going to be very interesting to see what he does. I think it's actually going to be interesting to see what both he and Zach Edey do, because both of those guys, like if this was maybe Trace Jackson Davis would still be a little undersized for back in the 1990s. But if this was a different game, if this was 1990s NBA, Zach Edey, Trace Jackson Davis are probably both lottery picks, right? Because of the way they play on the post, you didn't have to have much of a jump shot. You could just dominate in the paint, rebound, do everything you need to do. But now you have to be more athletic. You have to be able to guard the perimeter, which I think Trace Jackson Davis can do. I think he can guard the perimeter. But in terms of his shooting, that's something that's like, if you could go back to even the 2000s, Trace Jackson Davis could be a Ben Wallace or a Dennis Rodman. Like he could be a rebounding guy. He could be a defensive guy that could guard multiple positions. He's just not a scorer. But in today's NBA, you have to have a scorer. So that's where it's going to be interesting. I would not be surprised, Jim.
Trace is a scorer. I think he's a scorer
in the NBA. You think he's a scorer in the NBA?
Well, it depends on what you constitute score. And it's definitely. This is why I think that Edey is going to have more problems, because he's not athletic. He can't move. Well, he can't just park in the paint in the NBA. And there are plenty of guys that can move him.
Right.
I think
I don't disagree.
The kid from Northwestern worked his ass off, just bodying Edey up. Mm-hmm. And every time he touched the ball, somebody else was in his face.
Right.
And I mean, that just this is a college team. What the hell do you think they have in the NBA? Right. They got guys that are bigger, stronger, faster, smarter. So
right. I agree.
It's a different deal.
It is, but this is more. This is not so much about the NBA as it is. I would not be shocked if both of those guys came back next season. Like I don't think Trace Jackson Davis will.
I see Zach Edey coming back, but
he's projected to be in the 50s.
Trace Jackson Davis just won his 4th straight Big Ten men's basketball Player of the Week honors. That is an absolute first in Big Ten history. Nobody has ever done that ever. So the discussion I want to have right now is not about the NBA, and damn it, I'm sick and tired just because I cover this is not about being a homer. I'm tired of people coronating Edey as the Player of the Year. I'm like, you might want to let this thing play out just yet.
I don't think
that has slowed. Has it slowed? Because I have noticed that it has slowed a bunch at least. But it was aggravating when people who had already like, oh yeah, well he's Player of the Year. I'm like, just chill out on that. And now, I think that Indiana. What if Indiana goes to Purdue and wins? I think that there's no way that you don't give Player of the Year in the Big Ten to Trace Jackson Davis. First of all, yesterday on Super Bowl Sunday, I sent out a tweet. It was kind of tongue in cheek. After Northwestern beat Purdue, I said, "Hey, the safest bet today is on Chris Collins for Coach of the Year."
Yeah,
well, it was kind of a tongue in cheek thing bet on the prop bets that are being made that day, and of course, people that take that literally and Mike, oh no, it's Mike Woodson. I'm like, dude, let's wait and see what happens, because that can change tomorrow night when Indiana goes to Northwestern. They win that game, that eliminates Chris Collins without question.
Does it?
Yes.
Why would it eliminate Chris Collins? I can't wait to talk to Mike about this.
I mean, from Coach of the Year, if Indiana continues, it's going to be tricky because Indiana was picked to be the winner.
Right.
So that puts more pressure on them. It's kind of like watching video replay. Well, it was when it was called on the field. Well, You've got to throw in. So then and to be fair, then you got to throw in Matt Painter.
Right.
They weren't picked. They weren't picked to do what they're doing.
I think that those
it's a three-man race. Yes, it is. It's a three-man race.
I think those three guys are all Matt Painter, Mike Woodson, and Chris Collins are all worthy of consideration. I don't know who's going to win.
Well, that's not in question. It's
I don't
which
have
of those three.
Well, and I don't have a problem if any of those three guys wins, to be quite honest with you.
It depends. You got to go to the end of the season.
Right. Well, I'm saying right now, if one of those three guys wins, I would have no problem with any of those three guys winning that award. But I don't think this week's game between Indiana and Northwestern, if Indiana wins, I don't think it rules out Chris Collins.
We've got to take a break. John's getting on us, so we'll have to do that. Mike's up next. We'll just continue this discussion on the other side of that.
Sounds good.
That's perfect. I love that. Hey, you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We appreciate you more than you know. Brought to you by our good friends from Endeavor Hospitality's BB's Market, located here in Bloomington. They're your butcher baker, no matter where you live, though. The full-size bakery, the best of in-house made products. You can reach out to them. Visit bbs.com. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Things were getting heated.
No, it was great.
It was great conversation.
It was fun.
Good morning, Mike. Happy Valentine's Day.
Is that a camouflage shirt jacket you're wearing?
Yeah, it kind of is. Yeah, I guess. I like it.
No, I like it. I'm just I got to be honest. Mike DeCourcy in camouflage, it was not my first thought that I was expecting to see, even though it's a very different camouflage. Very subtle.
Like he's worn it before on here, but maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, I hope not, man. I try to mix up my wardrobe. You know that.
Dude, what do you think it's like for me, Mike?
You guys put way too much stock in it. I wear the same thing every week. I don't care.
Well, there's that. I certainly don't want to have to go back and look at some clips and see me wearing the same thing. I'm like, oh God, that's the worst thing.
I mix it up
Mike,
each day, but
we were talking about Big Ten Coach of the Year, just having the conversation because I think it's a great conversation. There's only three guys that are in it, and it's a very fluid thing right now. And it's great. Chris Collins, of course, Mike Woodson, and Matt Painter. So that's a great conversation. Just the Big Ten in general is great. This weekend was awesome. I was watching you guys Sunday. Just what a great day. What a great weekend of basketball, fun basketball. It was awesome.
Absolutely. It's a great college basketball season.
It is. It really, really is.
Because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't have any idea. I mean, every season now, it's very rare that you have a team or a couple of teams that separate themselves and identify themselves as likely champions. I mean, I think back to 2015, I was having a conversation with Sean Miller last week and about that season where Kentucky, Wisconsin, Duke and Arizona. And I would have put everything I owned on one of the, like if you said and I'm not a gambler now or whatever, but everything I own on one of those four winning it. You could have the whole field and I'd take those four. And I had no doubt. And this season, you couldn't identify one, let alone four. It's just a completely different circumstance. I kind of compare it to 2014.
All right, 15 seconds.
Dining experience with weekly specials, quick, attentive service.
Okay, now here's where I confess that I 100% didn't know whether or not we were on the air. I didn't think so, but then when you asked me that question, I'm like, do I ask if we're on the air? Because that would look bad.
This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. And now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Well, shucks, welcome back, folks, here on this Valentine's Day. Yeah. John Boy getting a little country with us. But that's not his fault. We were singing earlier before we came on, singing some Merle Haggard for some reason. I had a worm in my head. Welcome back, Mike DeCourcy from Sporting News and the Big Ten Network joining us here on this Valentine's Day. Hope you're having well. Welcome aboard, Sir Mike.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing fine. Dustin Schutte with me as always as well. What a great weekend. I was just talking to you in the break about this, but this past weekend just seemed to be awesome in basketball, period. Watching these games, they were all fun. There were so many great endings. The Big Ten, it doesn't even matter. I mean, it's the landscape of college basketball. The Big 12, gosh, they're still, it's just crazy watching them and what they're getting done. Did Texas Tech end up beating?
They did. Beat Texas last night.
Aren't they the last place?
They are in last place.
Last place, Texas number 6. I mean, it's just, but the Big 12 is like walking through a snake pit, man. You can't, you got to watch where you step.
There has never been a league like the Big 12 in college basketball. And I say that with no hesitation, because I know the history of great power leagues, because I was covering the Pitt Panthers in 1991. And in that season, on the final day, the penultimate day of the Big East tournament, which back then was played Friday, basically Thursday night to Sunday. So on Saturday, I wrote a piece that 8 of the 9 teams in the Big East were alive for NCAA tournament bids, and they wound up getting 7 out of 9, which remains the record more than 30 years later as the largest percentage of teams ever to come from one conference. But one of the things that existed in that league and probably helped along the lines of getting 7 out of 9 was Boston College that year had Billy Curley and Howard Isley, and those guys were all freshmen, and they were not ready to win in that league. Ultimately, they became very good and made an Elite 8. But that year, they were not ready. And so they went 1-15. And they did give Villanova a scare in the 8-9 game of the Big East tournament that year. But that was all they did, 1-15. So they gave a lot of victories, so to speak, or they made you earn, but you still wound up with a win that year. And that doesn't exist in this Big 12. It doesn't. There's no team like that. I mean, you saw that last night with Texas Tech. Texas Tech did not play a very challenging schedule. So when they came into conference play, they had accomplished very little, but they had also lost very little. And they got into the Big 12 and started taking up losses. They either lost 8 or 9 consecutive games, but now they've won 3, and every one of those 3 is consequential game because they're either beating a team like Texas and affecting seeding at the top of the bracket, or they're beating someone at the bottom end, whether it be West Virginia or Oklahoma or someone that's trying to get into the tournament. So they are right now, Texas Tech is a major pain for those Big 12 teams that are trying to get in. And they've actually pulled ahead of Oklahoma at this point. And remember, Oklahoma is the team that beat the current, quote, number 1 team in the country by 24 points just 2-3 weeks ago. You guys know I hate the polls. Like, they're the stupidest thing in sports. But if there's nothing stupid, like if people doubt me on this, just look at yesterday's poll. Purdue comes out as number 3. Alabama is number 1. Now, with the Northwestern loss, let me see what the final margin of Sunday's game was. The final margin of that game was 6 points. Okay, so they now have lost 3 games by a grand total of 15 points. Oklahoma's 3 losses, which includes that Alabama's 3 losses, which includes the Oklahoma embarrassment, they came by a combined 49 points. So what is the poll telling you? The poll is telling you who lost least recently. You can't figure that out for yourself? The game was on Sunday. If you can't figure that part out for yourself, what can you figure out? So you need those people to tell you that Purdue lost on Sunday? I think that we knew. So it just shows what an absolutely worthless exercise the AP poll is. I got lots of stories about it, but I think that encapsulates it perfectly. Alabama is not having a better season than Purdue is. They may go on to. I mean, Purdue could lose on Thursday. They got another really brutal road game they got to play at Maryland. They could lose. All right. At that point, Alabama will be having a better season than Purdue. But today, no. Today, it's not even close.
Well, I think the AP is more about today. Those guys it's not what have you done for me. They're not looking back over the body. Where do they think you are today? And with Purdue losing, in the way they lost to Northwestern, a team that's not even secured in the NCAA yet, but close.
Oklahoma is under 500, and they beat the number 1 team by 24 points, and it was really worse than that.
I don't think Purdue is going to go past the Elite 8, so I don't have a problem.
They might not.
I think that's people. Here's the thing. The poll does not have set criteria of what you're using. I think that's a problem because everyone uses their own to vote. They're like, okay, I think this team is here for this reason. Where this guy votes and thinks, I think this team is here for this reason. They're not using the exact same parameters for one thing, which I think is a problem.
I think a bigger problem, and I noticed this more in football because that's what I used to cover on the college side was college football with the AP poll, is you have some people that they cover a specific team and they are so entrenched in that team that they really don't know anything outside of that team or that conference or just a couple teams or a division. Really, that
encapsulates someone like me.
So then you just see a record and say, oh, whatever, 10-2 must be good. Well, if they didn't beat anybody, or if they lost those 2 games by 100 points,
I think that goes on incredibly a lot with on the national scene. I don't think it happens as much in like for the conference wise, Mike. Well, but the Big Ten. But on the national scene, absolutely, I don't think these guys are in tune. I just agree with you, Dustin.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And then you throw in there's over 300 college basketball teams, and it's hard to know what's going on. So I agree with Mike. It's always been I just think that they see what happened most recently, and then they fill out their poll based on that. And it's not like they're not bad people. They're not trying to screw your team. They're not trying to screw your team. It's just there's no way when you are a beat writer for a specific team or a conference, it's very difficult to know what else is going on outside. Like this is why there have been times when I would get opportunities to vote for specific awards during the college football season. I didn't do it because I didn't watch other conferences. I have no gauge on what a running back in the Pac-12 is doing compared to. I'm going to think the guy in the Big Ten is better because I watched him all season. And I have so I would not vote in those things because I didn't feel like I had enough knowledge about everybody around the world. So I think you're asking these AP voters to do too much when they have just tunnel vision, and it's not their fault. It's just the job.
I did that job, and you have to be pretty obsessive about the sport in order to have if you're covering a specific team in league, you have to be pretty obsessive about the sport to then go spend your downtime watching more. I get that, but I just think that the exercise is pointless, and people keep coming to me, and people are mad at Kentucky at Calipari because they haven't beaten a ranked team in X or whatever, or their record against ranked teams over such a period as this, and I'm like, I don't care at all. I mean, I don't care what they've done. Like a year ago, they were a 2 seed. That means something to me. What they've done against ranked opponents, it couldn't mean less because I don't put any value in it. And I don't put any value in it because I was involved in the process more than 30 years ago, and I know what it's like, and I know what it's like to be for certain I don't know what's the right word I want to use. Preconceptions. That's a good word. The example that I give is that in 1991, I believe it was, LaSalle was 26-1, 24-1. It built, and there wasn't anybody that was really. Must not have been 91. It had to have been 90 because at that point, Vegas in 91 was clear far and away the number one. So it must have been 90. So I did it that year, and LaSalle had Lionel Simmons, who's one of the all-time great college basketball players. They had 2 to 3 other guys who played in the NBA. But they were playing in the Metro Atlantic Conference, so people just dismissed them. And but they were 22-1 or 24-1 or 26-1 so I started voting them number one. And so the whole February of that year, I was the one on the poll. And it was so frustrating. And I was disappointed, frankly, in LaSalle when they had a reunion for that team. They didn't invite me because I was the one. I felt like I should have been there. But after I finished that year or the next year, a person who obviously is devoting almost my entire life to college basketball, they took my vote away. And I said, why did you take why am I not voting? And they said, it's his turn. That's how they do it, or did it. I don't know. And it's like that. At that point, I said, I'm never doing this again. I am out. If this is what it's like and this is what it's about, it's his turn, not who's the person who is best qualified to do the vote. I'm out. And I've been asked twice since, and I've declined both times. And the other part of it is that really I don't know why anybody does it, guys, because it's a lot of work and they don't pay you.
Well, it's a lot of work if you do. It's a lot of work if you do it right.
Yes, that's what I mean. Yeah,
I don't think a lot of people do it right. Is the part, and that's another part of the problem. There have been instances where we know that coaches have had managers do it or have somebody do it. Just fill this out on the coach's side. So I'm not saying that ever happens on the AP side, but going back to what Dustin said, when you're in an area of a country that you don't cover an area, there's no way I cannot accurately decide anybody from the Big Ten their value against even the Big 12, much less further out to the Pac-12. I'm not covering those schools. I watch, I see it, but I don't see enough. I don't think to do that. So, and I can admit that, but I think some of those people are just too arrogant to admit that. They shouldn't be. It's just a pointless poll because it means nothing, like you said.
Well, here's my question real quick, because I know we got to take a break, but I know that the polls are for the fans. Is it also for recruiting? Like, I legitimately don't know the answer to this question. Like, do coaches enjoy it? Because if Indiana continues to win and they finish top 5 in the country, they can send that out to recruits. Purdue was number one for enough. Okay, so I
think it is a PR vehicle. I mean,
they could use it as that, but I don't think that's why the AP is that they're doing it.
No, they do it because it helps sell their news service.
Exactly.
It's just one component of selling their news service. I think they do a lot of other things that are more important in selling their news service, but it's one component of that process. But I think it is used as PR. I mean, Florida Atlantic's probably still ranked as far as I know. I don't know for sure.
How about Dusty May? What the job he's doing there?
He's doing great.
From Greene County, right over here in Bloomfield.
Yep, he's doing a phenomenal job down there.
As a matter of fact, Mike, I put a tweet out the other day and I left off Scott Drew from Baylor, or inadvertently. But I put, how about Indiana homegrown basketball coaches? Seriously, Terry Morin from Seymour, Mike Woodson from Indianapolis, Dusty May, of course, from Bloomfield, Mike Lewis from Jasper. I included Matt Painter from Muncie, the women's coach, I forget her name at Purdue.
Michael Lewis, right? Michael Lewis he's an Indiana kid, right? I
listed him already. Yeah. From
Jasper. Did you mention him? Okay.
Yeah. But and then the Purdue
John Gross.
Now, where is he?
He's at Akron and in 3rd place, I think, in the MAC. So
I knew that there would be some that I just didn't know and forgot. And I forgot Drew. I didn't add him on there, but just those that I had on there, it's like they're 98-25. You've got one team that's been number one, another team that's number two. You've got Indiana that's doing what they're doing. FAU is doing what they're doing. Michael Lewis is 18-7 at Ball State. I don't know. Baylor is currently 20-6. That's we talk about the players from Indiana so much, but how about the coaches right now on a roll?
Great job. Absolutely phenomenal job, no doubt.
We've got to take a break. We've got the great Mike DeCourcy with us from the Sporting News and the Big Ten Network. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Big Ten play. Is it starting to tighten up? Is there a possibility for a Big Ten race? And what about Players of the Year? Is that over or not? Back with more Indiana Sports Beat, brought to you by our good friends from Go Team, a part of the Endeavor Hospitality Wow Club. Make sure you go to Endeavor, sign up for the Wow Club, but also you can get Go Team Bites, just goteambites.com or at BB's. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Golfers, here's the deal. John Boy.
Yes, sir.
When there is accidental audio over a commercial when you started it, does that go out?
I just fix it afterward.
Okay. Are you able to mute a mic?
Yes, that's what I do during the breaks.
I would, if that ever happens, I'd just mute that person.
I mean, I get what you're saying, but to know that's going to happen is pretty difficult. I just changed.
I know
the fact.
Oh, is it easier just to do that? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just. I
There's
kind of
no way.
I
would have had no way in knowing Mike was going to say something.
Oh, I know that. That's not what I'm saying. I don't know if you can, if it's quick enough, if you can just mute it and say.
No, it's fine. It doesn't take much to fix it afterward.
John's got it down to a science.
I really do.
Derek says, what does he think it would take for IU to be put in the South bracket where Sweet 16 lead is in Louisville? Keep winning.
Yep.
I wanted to.
It's just kind of. That's a simple answer. I'm not going to answer for him, but I can tell you, you keep winning.
Yeah,
it's easy.
They're right now. I don't know what everybody else is saying, but I still have them as my overall number one seed. Maryland would change that.
Now who you're talking about? This was about Indiana.
Purdue.
Purdue. Okay.
Oh, for really? IU. Oh, they're yeah. That's not going to happen. They're not going there.
Well, that's what he's saying. What would it take? What if they
would have to completely collapse?
Okay. What if Indiana wins the Big Ten tournament?
They don't put that much stock in it.
It depends on what Purdue does. IU winning the Big Ten tournament will have no effect because it's too late.
Well, but it's what they have done before that added to that.
Yeah, but what you have to remember is Purdue is right now the number one overall seed in the tournament, so they have to fall precipitously. They're almost certainly gonna get a 1 seed. I
can't. It would take, yes, I agree.
What you have to remember is Purdue. If once Purdue is on the bracket, IU can't go on in their region unless they're a 5 seed, and I don't think that's what IU fans want. I think IU want,
and I don't think that's where they're going to end up.
I don't either, and not the way they're going now. I think they're up to.
They're a solid 4 seed right now. I think they're a solid 4.
Man, I let me tell you, I think you're underrating them. Let's just put it that way.
Well, I think they've been underrated in the polls, and I think they still.
I meant from a seeding standpoint, you may, relative to what I'm doing, working on my bracket today, you may be underrating them. And that's my point. That's why, unless Purdue were to completely collapse, and I don't think that's right.
Sell it today.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Valentine's Day. Happy Tuesday. Coming to you from the Golf Club Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by our good friend Cheryl Sizemore, a great sponsor of ISB Radio. For those of you in the Indianapolis area looking for a home, Cheryl Sizemore is where you should turn. Her 2 decades of experience could be the reason you find the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and the Big Ten Network is with us now. Mike, Mr. Bracketology, Mr. Dr. Bracket. You should become Dr. Bracketology. That's
no,
Dr. Bracket.
Joe's got all the things already covered. I can't. But that's why I do like to be referred to as a bracket analyst. That's what I like. That's what I prefer. In that,
we need to find a title with some swag to it.
You don't think bracket analyst holds up? No.
Well, I'm just saying, brackets yo or something. Yo brackets.
I would just go with
go off the chain. Just completely off
brackets.
The
is that what you're saying?
There you go. I would just go with Mike DeBrackets. Why wouldn't you just incorporate his last name? Why would you not just do that?
Mikey 2 brackets. Mikey 2 brackets. Oh, I like that. Mikey 2 brackets. Oh, yes.
Well, I'm Irish, so maybe it should be Mikey O brackets. Maybe that's.
There we go. There we go. I like that.
That's what it takes. A little brainstorming. That's all it takes. Bam. Yeah. You better register that, trademark that. Derek has a question. He says, Mike, what does you think that it would take for Indiana to be put in the South bracket where the Sweet 16 elite is in Louisville? And you can quickly put that notion.
I just don't see Purdue collapsing, and
that's what it would take, because
pretty much.
Tell them why. They can't be in the same reason.
I suppose that Alabama could supplant Purdue at some point, and that might be their natural region, and therefore Purdue gets booted aside to either East or Midwest, and then at that point, IU would be a candidate to fill one of the top 4 seed lines in Louisville. That would probably be what you'd need to have happen. You need Alabama to continue to rampage and Purdue to take a step back.
I think that would require Maryland to probably. Maryland is the best shot to beat Purdue.
Yes,
and possibly Indiana. If that were to happen, and then somebody beats Purdue in the Big Ten tournament, and Indiana,
you're putting way too much stock in the Big Ten tournament.
Well, and what if it were early though, Dustin?
It's not the tournament itself.
Okay.
It's the fact of what they're doing prior to all through that. It's not the tournament. It's just the games.
Mike will know this obviously way better than I will. So I'm interested to get his thought. But it seems to me like every time we talk about the Big Ten tournament, how it could affect seeding, it almost never does. Now, I mean, if it's close and maybe Alabama and Purdue between the 2 top overall seeds, I don't know. But to me, it just seems like every time we go in and if they have a good run in the Big Ten tournament.
I'm not talking about a good run, though. There's a difference between having a good run and winning it and ending your season like Indiana has been playing and then following that up with those consecutive wins. It's not about the tournament itself. It's about winning. Well,
I understand.
They would only have a double bye. They would have just a couple games. But winning those level of games, marquee games, which they should be, I think it will be the aggregate of all that.
I feel like Purdue would have to lose 2 more regular season games and then have an early exit from the Big Ten.
Well, that's what I said. Maryland and Indiana beats them in the regular season, and then they get beat in the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it,
that's a lot to ask. That's a lot to ask.
Yeah, if you look at it, I think that the 8th seed in the Big Ten would have a shot. I mean, they'd have to play phenomenally, but they'd have a shot. So that scenario is not implausible. But also, while that's happening, Alabama can't lose.
Right.
And I don't know. I'm going to look, but what is the schedule for Alabama that suggests can they lose? Because they're not like the Big Ten. I mean, now they have to go to Tennessee, so that's a losable game. And they have to go to A&M, which I suppose if they played poorly, it would be. But then you're looking at South Carolina, Georgia, and Arkansas. Auburn, 3 of those games are at home. I mean, they're not losing a lot more games. So it's not implausible for that to happen. It's just it requires a significant degree of cooperation, so to speak, from Purdue. And I think after Sunday, it's likely that they'll figure some things out.
Well, and to that point, I was going to ask, have teams figured out, it seems like the last 2 games, Iowa and Northwestern, some teams have figured out ways to defend Edey. Now, I say that knowing he got 14-14 against Iowa and then 22 or 24-8 against Northwestern. But are teams figuring out how to defend them? And then just, I mean, to me, it's Purdue's got good enough shooters they can kill you that way too. But it's almost, to me, it's like it's better to force those guys to hit shots as opposed to just let Edey get 30 points.
Well, I think first of all, it starts though with Northwestern they trap the post anyway, and they're great at it. And they come from really different. They don't just drop off the nearest guy and allow you to take an open 3. They come from different angles. They come hard and quick. It's what they do to begin with. So they were kind of set up well to challenge Purdue. I think the thing that came out of those games more so than the way to defend Edey was the fact that pressuring Purdue it's not new. I mean, you go back to 2015 and 2016 and what Arkansas Little Rock did to them. And there have been a number of games, and those are totally different guards, but it's been a theme through that period as Purdue has been outstanding. And it hasn't been universal that when they had the group that went to the Elite Eight in 2019, I don't think that team was as easy to press, but they've had fairly, let's just call it an annoyance, because it's not been a persistent problem, but it has been an annoyance for them at times. And it worked for Iowa to the extent that it made it competitive. And it worked for Northwestern to the extent that it basically completely turned around the game. Even though they didn't turn them over much, it does cut down your shot clock time. And it does make it harder, therefore, for you to get the ball into Edey's hands. Because it takes work to get the ball into the post. He has to establish position. You have to establish the angle to get him the ball. And all of that goes involved. All of that's involved in that. And when you have 20 seconds to work on that instead of 25, those 5 seconds make a difference.
Another couple other conversations I really want to have. Big Ten Coach of the Year. Man, you talk about something that is fluid right now. And of course, whether you're a fan of Indiana, Northwestern, or Purdue, boy, do you have a rooting interest in this, as you should, because those are the only 3 places where I see the candidates coming from. I sent out a tweet on Super Bowl Sunday after Northwestern's upset of Purdue that the safest bet of the day was to bet on Chris Collins as Coach of the Year, tongue-in-cheek bet, prop bets. But a lot of people didn't get that. They take them all literally. they take everything literally. I better know Whitson. You know what? If Mike Whitson does certain things, I think it will be Mike Whitson. The thing that's hurting him a little bit is Indiana was picked to win the Big Ten championship, I think. Then you've got Matt Painter, who was not picked to win the Big Ten championship. So what do you do with him? He's got the Player of the Year. If they end up winning, and they should, although, man, there's no coulda, woulda, shouldas, but I don't think there's a team in the Big Ten that had closer calls than Purdue did against the worst teams in the conference. Nebraska, Ohio State, Michigan State's not the worst team, but those 3, they were lucky to escape those 3 games, any of those 3 games with a win. And if you just take one of those out, and Indiana's brain dead loss at Iowa, and that alone changes the complex of this race, which would be awesome. It would be incredible. But where they finish is going to have an impact on who wins Coach of the Year. In my mind, if Indiana goes to Northwestern tomorrow night and beats Northwestern, I think that kicks Chris Collins down a little bit.
Thank you, Mike.
And hold on but the end of the season, they have to do something after that, depending on, I think, who wins the conference. if Purdue wins the conference, Mike, how are they not going to give it to Matt Painter since they weren't picked to win? And I know what Northwestern has done is far and away more harder and a greater accomplishment.
Well, there's what will happen and there's what should happen. Those aren't always the same things. But Northwestern, let's not forget, okay? They were picked to finish 13th in a conference that has 14 teams. They are currently in second place. They've beaten the top team in the conference and the team that was ranked number 1 and the team that was on everybody's top seed line. They lost after last season, a highly unsuccessful season that had every person who does write hot seat columns putting Chris's name near the very top of those columns. And then from that, they lost Pete Nance, one of their top scorers, and Ryan Young, another of their top scorers, both basically 3-year regulars for the Wildcats. They lost one to Duke and one to North Carolina, where both players are playing significant minutes and are basically starters. And they lost all that. And from from what seemed like an absolutely over situation in some ways, they're the second place team in the league. I don't even for me, it's not even hard. As long as Northwestern continues to perform reasonably well down the stretch, and their schedule's really hard. But if they more or less split what they have left, I have a vote for AP, for the AP Big Ten Coach of the Year. There's no doubt about who I'm going to vote for if they continue. If Northwestern goes out and loses 5 in a row, okay, that changes things. But if they go 2-3 or 3-2, I don't know exactly how many games they have left. I think they have 6 games, but I guess the easy thing is to check the standings, which I have right in front of me. So they played 14 games, so they have 6 games left. So if they go 3-3, then I will vote for Chris Collins for Coach of the Year because I think he's done an amazing job. I think Matt Painter is a phenomenal coach. I think that Mike Woodson has overcome some significant challenges through injury to be relevant, for that team to be a contending team right there with a chance at least to have to either have a say about who wins the title or to get a share of it. And I think that Mike's done a phenomenal job in that way. But there was a general manager for the Pirates in the late 80s who came in when the Pirates had gone through 4 or 5 just disastrous seasons. And the quote he gave to one of our reporters at the Pittsburgh Press was, "It ain't easy raising the dead." And that would be, how I would encapsulate what Chris has done this year. It looked like they had no chance when the season began. And then they went out and lost by 30 to Pitt. And it looked like that nothing was going to happen this year. And from all of that, they're in second place in the conference now. I can't say enough about the job Chris has done.
And as it sits Tuesday, he will at worst be 2-1 finishing the season against those 2 other coaches in the race. He could be 3-0. So there you go.
There's another race in the league as well. Player of the Year and National Player of the Year. And the National and Big Ten Player of the Year I think are coming down to the same 2 players. Obviously, Zach Edey and Trace Jackson Davis. Many people, too many people, I think, crowned him way too early. And I'm talking about Zach Edey as Player of the Year while he has still continued to play at a high level. Trace Jackson Davis is playing at a level that's kind of mind-boggling. He just became the first first player in Big Ten history to win Player of the Week honors for a month. 4 straight weeks. It's been Trace Jackson Davis. And the Big Ten has been the Trace Jackson Davis show. Now, Zach Edey was part of that along the way, but Trace Jackson Davis is playing consistently at a higher level. And I'm not saying he's the Player of the Year right now, but I am saying that Zach Edey is not the core. You cannot crown him as Player of the Year.
I think that, to me, I think they're 2 different conversations. I don't think that Trace can make up the ground from having 2 to 2.5 middling months, especially by player of the year All-America standards. He did not have a great couple of months to start the season. And I think, and I haven't asked him, but I think it was because he wasn't healthy. I don't think he was feeling totally himself for that. And some of it was also his team being somewhat in flux because of injury and such. So I don't think he can make that up. But to me, the Big Ten Player of the Year award, and different people vote this differently, but to me, the Big Ten Player of the Year award is, what did you do in the Big Ten? I don't care what you did against Kansas back in December. That's not the Big Ten. I mean, it's important to the national scene and to first team All-America or Player of the Year or whatever, but that's not the Big Ten. The Big Ten is what you did against Northwestern, Rutgers, Iowa, Wisconsin, Purdue, Ohio State, Michigan, etc. That's the Big Ten. And so that's what should be judged when you're voting for Big Ten Player of the Year or all Big Ten. Just those games, those 20 games. That's a pretty big chunk of season. And and as a result, anybody that wins that award has done a pretty amazing thing. But in 2002, Jay Williams was the National Player of the Year for the majority of, if not all, but for at least the vast majority of the major awards. But Juan Dixon was the Player of the Year in the ACC. And I thought that was the right call because Maryland won the league that year. Juan had a great season. Absolutely was the right call. So I think they're different awards, and I think Trace has a great chance of getting. I can't speak for everybody else, but Trace has a great chance of beating out Zach for that award for Big Ten Player of the Year. The way I vote for it, it just doesn't make any sense to me to vote for the Big Ten Player of the Year based on what you did against either Kennesaw State or Kentucky. That neither of those teams is in the Big Ten. There are 13 teams in the Big Ten, and you play 20 games against them, and what you do in those 20 games should dictate that award.
I agree with that. And I also agree that from a national standpoint, there is no way that Trace Jackson Davis is going to overcome the already biased thoughts, preconceived notions that Zach Edey was the guy. It's like they see it, this stuff going on in December.
He's earned that, though, Jim. He's earned that.
Correct. I mean, I'm not saying he hasn't, but I also think that it is. I just think that there's still a race out there, and there's other players that are having a great year that aren't being mentioned. But I think that I'd like to looking at the season play out. Purdue has had a great year, but you know what? They've still got to finish. The freshman guards that they have, that impacts what their team does, and Northwestern, like Indiana, because they have veteran guards exploited. Man, Purdue's guards just wilted at the last 5 minutes of that game. And that,
which of the two? I think it's accurate for both, but which of the two were you referencing?
Between what? I'm sorry.
You said the Purdue's guards just wilted the last 5 minutes, and I said, which of the two games are you referencing? Because I think it's true for both, but I wasn't sure which one you were.
No, absolutely. But the last 5 minutes specifically against Northwestern, which they just and that is going to, and then they did a great job on Zach Edey. Of course, he got 26 points, whatever he had, but they didn't let him dominate the game.
Right. And as I said before, that was, between Matt Nicholson being 7 foot and really physical for a young player. I mean, he's got, he is a tree. He is hard to move. And when I say he's a tree, I don't mean he's immobile, because he has pretty good feet. And he's had some really nice dunks this year. He's not immobile, and he's not planted to the ground, but I mean, he is just hard to move, even for Zach. So that was a good component to start with. And then from the other standpoint, as I said, they already trap the post, and they do it very inventively and creatively. Chris Lowry has done a great job of defensive coordinating some of what Northwestern does. He deserves a lot of credit for helping to make that team more effective on D. And so they were the right team to play Purdue at that point. And as I said on Big Ten Basketball and Beyond on Sunday, the crowd The Northwestern crowd was a big part of that. At the end of the game, they were really hard to play against. And I don't know that they were hard for 40 minutes, but once they saw that there was a spark, that it wasn't just, okay, we're going to keep going back and forth and lose by 8. Once they saw that there was a spark there, I mean, that place ignited. Their fans were into it, just as IU's were. Although I think when IU played Purdue, that was a 40-minute deal. Their fans were going the whole time. I thought these guys died down a little bit during the game, but at the end they came through and they really made it hard for Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith to be successful in those final few minutes.
I'm going to make this comment before we sign out because I will forget if I don't say it now. So you talked about how Iowa and Northwestern defended Zach Edey very well. I don't think the national player of the race should be determined yet, or it's over. They played defense really well against him. He scored 38 points and grabbed 22 rebounds. So in games where they shut him down, he averaged 19 and 11. That's why he's still atop the National Player of the Year talk.
Well, I mean, there's games like that for Trace. I don't want to be a Trace Jackson Davis defender because that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to keep it open.
I'm saying it's open. I'm saying it's open, but you act like he's going to backpedal his way into this.
You don't say, oh, no, not at all. No, he is the leader. He's been placed there. But I also think that there has been some play that is kind of started to equal out that.
I don't disagree.
The thing that's killing Trace Jackson Davis is that I'm going to call it the line of demarcation for Indiana. They went through, and if it hadn't have been for Elon and Kennesaw State, that's the 2 games they win in between losing 5. So those 2 games, if you put a quality opponent in there, who knows if they don't lose again.
So no Kennesaw State slander, man. They're in my bracket.
Yes.
Oh, that makes Dustin happy. He used to live there.
I used to live in Kennesaw. I had season tickets. I was there for the season. They went 1 in 28 or whatever. I was at every home game. Disappointed I couldn't get season tickets to see the fruits of my fan labor pay off a little bit, but it's awesome to see what Amir Abdul-Rahim has done there in the last 4 years.
Well, that makes Indiana fans happy because that should bolster that win.
Yeah. I mean, well, you gotta root against Liberty, I guess, if you're a Hoosiers fan, because they're keeping pace with Kennesaw State. But Liberty's been there before. This is the first time for Kennesaw, and they are not backing down. They keep winning. They go. Any win would take them out of first place, but they're hanging.
Cannot thank you enough, Mike. Make sure you catch him each Sunday on Big Ten Network, Big Ten and Beyond. It's the big. You guys, what all do you have that day? Big show, Big Ten and Beyond. What
we do whatever games we have, and this Sunday it's one game, and we may.
Who is that? Who is this Sunday's game?
Wow.
I'll pull it up. Don't worry. Go ahead.
We do Big Ten basketball and beyond to close the day. We often have a pregame show, but it depends on those days. It depends on whether we have wrestling or women's basketball prior to, and I'm not sure what the schedule is for this week. But this week it's a very important Big Ten game. I love having it. Iowa versus Northwestern at Northwestern. So that's another huge Welsh Ryan game for the Wildcats, and it's one. Like I said before, in order to hold their place in the field and for Chris to be considered for Coach of the Year, I think a 3-3 finish would do them really well. They'll stay in the bracket if they do that. They'll be a first division team with a shot at a double bye if they do that.
How do they get 3 straight home games, Mike? Indiana plays at Northwestern tomorrow night, and they've got Iowa at Northwestern.
Yeah, I think
that's 3 straight home games.
I could be wrong, but that might have something to do with the cancellations or the postponements they had earlier in the year. I'm not sure. But don't forget, if you get 3 straight home games, at some point you went on the road. And this is a team. It's another thing that I like about what they've accomplished. They've been phenomenal on the road. They've been one of the Big Ten's best road teams. And if you talk about home road split, they have been a phenomenal road team. They're 6-2 on the road That's in this league. That's really extraordinary.
Appreciate you, Mike. Make sure you give him a follow and check him out on Big Ten Network to stay update on all that is happening. Cannot thank you enough, brother.
Thanks, guys.
You bet. The great Mike DeCourcy joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We've got lots more coming up to talk about. We'll be doing it right after this. Brought to you by our good friends from Barber Pop Real Estate Services. Those of you down in the Louisville, southern Indiana area, whether it's Floyd, Clark, Harrison, Jefferson, Scott counties down there, you need Barber Pop. They have served those communities for 3 decades. No one can get you in the home with less hassle and quicker than Barbara Pop Real Estate Services. Reach out to Barbara at barbarapop.com or our friend Matt Lincoln, Matt at barbarapop.com. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Andy Moore Honda.
All right, this will be a short segment. Unless Chronic happens to pop in early, then we'll just take him when he comes in. But if he doesn't, then we'll take a quick break before he comes on.
Quick break. I wanted to ask Mike about the final call because he had the Super Bowl call because he had a really good take on it, but too much basketball happening.
Too busy talking about Zach Edey and how much we hate him, right? No, I'm kidding.
Too much college basketball talk. The race for number 1. Hey, man, can you imagine if Purdue loses? When do they play? Wednesday or Thursday? They lose next? I think it's at Maryland.
It is.
They lose. That game at Mackey, huge then.
Yeah, depending on what happens to Indiana, it could be deciding who wins the title or who shares it. Or
what are y'all talking about?
Purdue plays at Maryland next. So if Indiana, if assuming that they would,
we just said that. I just said that.
Right.
Maryland's the only team that has not lost a home game
in the Big Ten.
Right.
Well, that's
why I didn't. That's why I didn't expect Indiana to win when they went there. When they had won those, I'm like, they're not going to win that game.
But I'm just saying, in terms of, think about a week ago when Purdue had a 3-game lead, and that if Purdue loses and Indiana wins, Big Ten title on the line at Mackey Arena. Dude, that would be awesome.
This season is. I feel bad for Indiana because they crapped the Big Ten championship away easily. They
were dealing with injuries. Still are.
The loss to Iowa had nothing to do with. I know Race Thompson went down, but I don't care. You had a 21-point lead. They got shell-shocked by that instead of being. That's why. God, I'm gonna have to freaking write a damn story centered around that. I swear, centered around that tweet because it's not about the letter, which cracks me up. It's that time, that exact time was a line of demarcation for Indiana. It's when, and I should save this for on there, but it's when Trace Jackson Davis posted it. And that is exactly what I said. And that's all that I said. That's what's funny.
Deliver them to your doorstep once a week. That's right. It's the fastest, simplest, and easiest way to avoid decision fatigue. You pick your plan and pick up at BB's Market with no extra charge. So leave the heavy lifting to us and enjoy healthy eating with stocked meals in your fridge. Order online today at thefreshfork.com. Fresh Fork is a proud partner of WOW Network.
This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. It is Happy Valentine's Day on this Tuesday. Hope your hearts are filling with joy, overrunning. Happiness and all that goes with that. Why are you laughing? What happened to your decent background instead of us now looking at
golf clubs?
Your ratty ass golf clubs leaned up against the wall.
And my movie thing. What? The light bulb burnt out, and I don't want to replace it. And the sound is better in here.
The light bulb burnt out.
Yep.
Wow. All righty then.
We get less echo.
There's that. Chronic Hoosier jumping on to join us. Buddy, how's it going, man?
What up?
Well, it's been a good run for Indiana basketball, both sides of the sport. We haven't talked about the women yet today, but I'll go ahead now and mention last night they went to Columbus and ran the Buckeyes out of the gym. I was at Mike Woodson's show at Southern Stone Restaurant inside Indiana basketball last night and had the game on and looked up, and it was the second quarter. They're already up by 20. It was 47-27. I'm like, what are you kidding me? This is a team that was ranked number 2 in the country, Ohio State. And Indiana is at their place running them out of the gym, and they're up by as much as 27, end up winning 83-59. But Indiana women's team is just still rolling. They are a solid number 2 in the AP poll, and it's just been a tremendous lifetime season for this team.
Yeah, I continue to say it.
And not to interrupt you, and a sold-out Purdue game coming up.
Yes. No, every time you turn around, the IU women are rewriting history, hitting another milestone. Whether it be program rankings, consecutive wins, etc., all the way on down the line. They're just a buzzsaw right now. I don't know how else to describe them, but when you see them, particularly what we've seen, their ability to close, Iowa was really, really tight with them. We saw it against their first battle against Ohio State, where they played really tight throughout the first half. Same with the Wolverines just prior to that, all the way down the line. These girls just close basketball games like professional assassins. I mean, it's just like nothing I've seen. Certainly not in the women's game. I don't know what the best comp is, even on the men's side, but it's just absolute dominance right now from Terry Morin's squad. And it's remarkable to see the way in which the team's being embraced. The fans are coming out supporting. Slowly the national media taking better note, although, Mackenzie Holmes continues to get overlooked for the unbelievable season she's having and the leadership she's showing. One of the best parts about this team is it doesn't seem to affect them. It only motivates them. Just truly selfless, gorgeous basketball being played right now in Assembly Hall by both teams, quite frankly.
Well, and what's always, not always, but what's been fun to watch this season when you talk about the women's team too, is they have some really great pieces. But they don't have a Caitlin Clark. They just move the ball extremely well. Grace Berger is aggressive. Mackenzie Holmes is really good under the basket. They've got Jim Coulter, the best shooter at Indiana, and Sarah Scalia. Like, they just have all the pieces. And when you watch their ball movement, I mean, it is incredibly fun basketball to watch. And it doesn't matter whether you're in NBA, high school, college basketball, the way they play, their floor spacing, the way they distribute, the way they're unselfish. I mean, that's the way the game is supposed to be played.
No, 100%. I've said it before. There are some teams that are really skilled. They just have a ton of talent. There are some teams that are really, really tough, just fight you for every inch of the floor. And some teams are just really connected, the way that they play for each other. Yeah. And Terry Morin seems to have hit the trifecta with this squad. Their grit, their resiliency, their skill. I mean, it's unbelievable to think that after all that they've replaced in the last 6 seasons, that somehow they would find a way to improve, and they just keep on getting better every year. There's no doubt Mackenzie Holmes deserves the Player of the Year to be in the Player of the Year conversation. But you look at Grace Berger, the fact that she was able to come back from her injury and be this effective this quickly, is nothing short of remarkable. And, she, in my mind, is quite honestly one of the toughest Hoosiers in any sport that I've ever seen live. Just a pure competitor in every sense of the word. And then, you throw in the Chloe Moore McNeil, just a tremendous example of the development that can happen within the program. Sarah Scalia, obviously just a phenomenal reserve for Indiana right now. She can light teams up. Transfer Sydney Parrish. I mean, all the way down the line. Yarden, just putting together an absolute monster. And in years past, I felt like Indiana has had some very, very competitive teams when it came to the Big Ten contention. And, the Big Ten as a whole has been apexing over the same period that IU's been ascendant. This looks like it could be the year that they break through, though, and they hang the banner for the Big Ten title. Every game where you expect maybe this is the one where they slip a little bit, they dig a little bit deeper and they find a way, whether it was Iowa at home the other night or to go on the road against that game on national television and turn around and just boat race the number 13 team straight out of their gym, quite honestly. Right now, Terry Morin's biggest struggle is probably keeping them tuned up when you're, sniffing a 30-point lead on the road. Just nothing short of remarkable.
Yeah, the Big Ten has been a little different this year. It is going to be absolutely incredibly difficult to win the Big Ten championship. But, and that's not because they're so deep. The Big Ten's not deep in women's basketball this year, but the top is so heavy. It's as heavy as you can imagine because you've got Indiana, which is one of the top teams in the country, Iowa right behind them. You've got Ohio State, who was until Indiana dismantled them, but you've got Maryland. So those three, Maryland, Iowa, and Indiana, three of the top teams in the country, and Indiana has to play them twice. Then they're going to have to play one of them again in at least maybe both in the NCAA or Big Ten tournament. So that is why it is so tough. You're playing against basically a top 5 team in Iowa in winning that. So if they get that done, it is an accomplishment, not just because of the history, but what who they're beating. They're beating Caitlin Clark, who, while is not one of my favorite players, is one of the best players in women's basketball. Someone said something yesterday about her, and I'm like, they were acknowledging the exposure that Caitlin was helping bring, and I'm like, you're right, it is, and it would be a lot nicer if she probably gave credit to the teams that she played, especially those that beat her, to bring more into that, but she doesn't do that, which is fine. But that's that little deal on that. But that's my little soapbox.
Yeah, it very much felt like that game the other night against Iowa. That was a Final Four caliber game. I mean, quite honestly.
Oh my God. Absolutely.
Tremendous talent on both sides of the floor.
Battling.
Yeah. And, Caitlin Clark is a generational talent in the women's game. Indiana is a generational talent as far as a roster construction right now. And I don't know. You'd almost have to go back to the 92-93 men's team to find probably a more complete roster, a more competitive roster in Indiana basketball, men's or women's. What they're doing right now is just nothing short of exceptional. And, they still get to face Iowa again to close the season. They've still got the Boilermakers coming to town next week. And then, we get Michigan, who's, again, no slouch. They're currently 4th in the Big Ten right now. So still a really, really tough road if Indiana wants to hang that banner. But definitely some winnable games left on the schedule, and then one hell of a rematch to wrap things up before the Big Ten tournament starts. So I don't see any signs of slowing down. Quite the opposite. They look like they're just picking up steam and determination, especially after that big battle between the undefeateds with LSU and South Carolina really kind of separated USC from the rest of the field. I think Indiana is very unequivocally making a case they deserve to be in that conversation for the best team in the country, and certainly going to be a very, very big threat come the NCAA tournament.
Ifs and nuts were if they hadn't lost. If they hadn't lost that game, I was going to say if they hadn't lost that game to Michigan State, and that's when Grace Berger was hurt. I hate it for them because they would be undefeated and have a shot to go undefeated through Big Ten play. Hate that for them in that regard. But on the men's side, also a Big Ten race, possibly. Indiana needs some help, Chronic, and it could be kind of playing into their hands. Purdue goes to Maryland next, the team that is the only team in the Big Ten not to lose a home game this year. I don't know if Maryland has, if they can exploit Purdue with the way they win. It's going to be interesting. But that would be if Indiana can get the win at Northwestern, and if Maryland were to upset Purdue, my, would we have a party to start planning for, not in the regard of a hell of a showdown coming.
No doubt. What looked like it was going to be a runaway, it seems like Indiana may be exposed a blueprint for how to tackle these Boilers. And Northwestern certainly exploited it Sunday night. Woodson acknowledged last night he saw a lot of stuff that looked like the Wildcats had borrowed from Indiana against the Boilers. I think that's probably their Achilles heel right now as well. I think they have a great backcourt. When the proper pressure is applied, you can kind of exploit some of their inexperience, some of their youth, and that seems to cascade across the floor for them at times. I don't know that. Who knows? I mean, Purdue has played some really good basketball this year. They've certainly shown some vulnerabilities right now. I think for Indiana, the key is going to be not looking too far ahead. That was one thing we talked about early in the season when all the accolades were pouring in and the preseason projections is, one of the big questions is how does Indiana handle those expectations? And while they certainly stumbled a little bit there around the turn of the year, I was looking back this weekend at historically, when's the last time that we saw Indiana put together these types of runs, where they're able to go 7-1 or greater over a stretch of Big Ten games. And you've got to go back to the 16 season, the 13 season, they put together 2 of those runs. The 12 season, they were able to put a pretty strong run together. Prior to that, we didn't see it since 2002. And then prior to that, since 93, which was, a whole separate level of dominance. But just recognizing how difficult what they've accomplished has been in light of the injuries. And, they continue to deal with that now with Race Thompson. I'm not sure exactly what it is, if it's a continuation of the prior or what have you.
No, it's something different. I was told it's a different, it's not the knee.
Nevertheless, they figured out a way, and they have been able to remix the chemistry and put together just a hell of a run here to put themselves back into contention. And right now, I think it's certainly reasonable to expect Indiana to be able to compete for the double bye in the Big Ten tournament. And who knows? We'll see how things break here. All it takes is one more loss from the Boilers, and then Indiana basically has their destiny in their hands as far as the Big Ten title. Right now they're 2 games back, and with Purdue still on the schedule, Indiana only needs help from one other team to put that at least a share of the Big Ten title in reach. So still a ton left to play for. Indiana steadily climbing up the seed lines as they've climbed up the rankings, back into the rankings, and continuing to move up. So the big thing right now is you just can't lose that momentum with a massive game at Northwestern here tomorrow night. What's ultimately going to decide second place in the Big Ten as things stand right now.
I mentioned I sent out a tweet the other day, which drew a lot of attention because people assume certain things. But there was what I'm calling a line of demarcation for this team this year. They had, they went into that dip where people talk about them losing 3 games. Man, if it hadn't been for Elon and Kennesaw State being on the schedule, they would have lost 5 straight. That was kind of buoyed around that thing, and it was not one thing. It certainly wasn't just Trace Jackson Davis's back. It was a myriad of things, and I don't think people get that. And it certainly, things did not change because of a letter, which cracks me up that anyone would actually think that, or to think that I think that. But that was a time of demarcation in a myriad of ways, because you've got the injuries that are happening to various guys, but this team is still young. Then one of the injuries is to Xavier Johnson. So now you've got to kind of change your offense, which now they've got to do that, something they had not done. They, against practiced all summer and through the fall with different characters now. So they had to change that around. Trace his back, obviously gets a little healthy, but Jalen Hood-Schifino gets better. This team finally gets more comfortable as a unit and are doing Miller Kopp doing things like playing great defense in Michigan or scoring 18 points in the game before that. He was not doing that either. They have a team meeting as well, but there was a line of demarcation in that period, Chronic, and this team has changed. Their identity, their mindset, everything is different, and it has been different from that period. It's not because of a letter. And I wish, that's why I did not reference or credit it or name it. It's a period of time to me, really. It's a coagulation of all of that stuff, in addition to just getting better, being coached, being understanding that defense and playing as hard as they can every game is the difference. That's why they won that Purdue game. They played like their head was on fire.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think when you go back and look, the way that Trace has exerted himself, and really just refused to lose. You very much get the sense of a senior who's embraced the leadership mantle and has fully actualized what it's going to take for him, both individually and as a teammate, to put the Hoosiers in a position to win. I think at the same time, you look at the maturation of Jalen Hood-Schifino having to not only get acclimated to the college game, but now having to assume that role without his backcourt mate in Xavier Johnson being available. It really has given Indiana, what's effectively a two-legged table at the moment, where on any given night, those two guys are going to be, generally, you can expect them to be stalwarts. It's just a matter of figuring out where the matchups are going to lead for somebody else to step up and make an impact. And as we've seen, it could be Miller, it could be Galloway, it could be Geronimo, on down the line right now. But, getting consistent high-level production from your point guard and, from your All-American big man, and just filling in the gaps has, it's been a process, and I think it's an ongoing one as a lot of guys continue to round out to form. I was having a conversation with a good buddy talking about some of tomorrow's struggles. And it's like, everybody is on a schedule, if you will. There are some guys that you probably don't expect to see around very long. Hood-Schifino in that category. Trace was in that category for most of his career. There was always a question at the end of every season what he intended to do, whether or not we would get him back. But beyond that, most of these guys are program players, guys that you expect to have for a number of years, that you expect to, as they continue to develop, you expect to continue to be able to lean on them more heavily. And I think what we've seen here is a lot of those guys starting to come to fruition, while recognizing that it's not like I've said it many times, it's not always going to be linear. But these guys figuring out what their roles are, what they need to do to fill those roles, and then on any given night, getting the matchups that are favorable for those guys, really stepping up and exceeding their potential, or at least achieving their potential. Leadership's contagious. Winning is contagious. And, I agree. I don't think it was necessarily a letter that spurred all this, although it does kind of crack me up. The contemporaneousness of it had me thinking the other night after that game, what's old boy feel? What was his name? Tim something. Tim Weaver.
I'm not saying it. I have not said it. Damn it. I have never
said it. I said
and I'm
it.
not going to say it.
Do you think Tim is like, is he stoked that the Hoosiers are winning now? Does he take credit for it? Is he a little, is he frustrated that he was proven to be a complete moron? I wonder how conflicted this run has been and what his feelings on it are.
I feel sorry for him, to be honest with you, because I'm like, okay, first of all, for someone to actually sit down, write a letter, fold it,
handwrite a
in
letter,
an envelope, handwrite a letter, fold it, put it in an envelope, lick the stamp, put it on there,
pay
take
for
that
postage
sucker to the mailbox, and send it. I'm like, first of all, I didn't know people still did that. Kidding, but I'm like, who does that? Okay, so every normal adult should knows that you're not going to do that. You're not writing letters to college athletes, and I don't need to tell you that. If you need me to tell you that, then you've got bigger issues. And if you believe that I believe that, you've got bigger issues. But it's kind of funny, and I agree with you, he probably is. But I'm assuming that this guy is not, of the everyday ilk, I guess you'd say. So that's why I hate that. I'm like, I almost feel bad for him. But it's just a line of demarcation for this team, because it was, like I said, it was a coagulation of all these things coming together. Trace Jackson Davis was not playing well. None of them were playing well. Hell, they were calling each other out saying, we're not tough enough. Mike Woodson was saying, we're not tough enough. We're not playing tough enough. They weren't. Everybody was saying it. I was saying it. Everybody across the deal was saying it. That's what cracked me up. But one thing got kind of catapulted as the flag that was waved at, which is not the deal, but it's just kind of becoming the representation for whatever reason. But it's just, I'm calling it the line of demarcation of when this team turned around. There was the team meeting. There had to be mental decisions. Hey, we've got to do something different, because look at what the hell they're doing. But their defense has been phenomenal. Trace Jackson Davis has been unbelievable. Jalen Hood-Schifino has really grown into his role, looks so comfortable out there. And even, like I said, Miller Kopp doing different things, different games. They still need to get some offensive output from somebody else, I think. Not that Michigan game was a little unique, but they're looking as good as I've seen it in 7 years. I sent that out. I agreed with you, Tronic. You got to go back to 2016. That's when you haven't seen Indiana basketball play like this since then.
Well, I'll tell you what, you look at, talk about how the offense has struggled at times. The end of that Michigan game, as ugly as that was, 8 straight stops to close the game on defense. When we could not buy a bucket, when they couldn't throw it into Lake Michigan, the defense traveled, and they were able to put together 8 consecutive stops. You look at the biggest turnaround, and while they have struggled, the focus and the intensity that they brought to the defensive end has absolutely translated into the offense. And I think that has been, to me, probably the biggest thing from this team since that line of demarcation is just their recommitment to playing better team defense. It hasn't been perfect, no doubt, but there's not been a game where you could really doubt the effort, the fight, the toughness. It very much seems like they internalized a lot of those criticisms because, quite frankly, they weren't criticisms. They were oftentimes just fact laid bare on tape when you go back and rewatch the game. They just weren't good enough on defense. They weren't tough enough on defense. And that has changed. And that takes a lot of internal fortitude. And, like we were talking about with the women, that takes a level of connectedness across the floor, knowing that, you can take a risk and your teammate's going to be in position to help you out in the event that you get beat on it. And, there was a time where I felt like there was very little trust because of the way that the rotations were just broken. They fixed that, and they fixed it in a big way. And most importantly, it looks like it's improving over time, which is exactly where you want to be as you start rounding into the back end of February, staring down March.
You go on the road and hold a team to one of their last 10 to end the game and 0 for their last 7. Don't allow them to score the last 5 minutes of a game at their place. you're gonna do well. And Jet Howard had killed Indiana in the first half. He had 9 points, 4 of 8 shooting. Second half, 3 points on 1 of 6 shooting. And Miller Kopp, I think, guarded him a lot. So that's Dickinson didn't kill Indiana. They did an unbelievable job, and that's what I'm interested to see how this game is going to go tomorrow night. I think this is going to be a shootout because Northwestern has such great guard play, but I think Indiana can take advantage at the other end. And it's going to be interesting to see what they're able to do at Northwestern, which should be almost a 50-50 crowd at worst, I'm going to think.
Normally Welsh Ryan is as close as you're going to see to Assembly Hall North. Tremendous Hoosier contingency in the Chicagoland area. Small, intimate gym. Whenever you get a large opposing crowd in there, they especially when the team's doing well, it can turn really favorable in that gym real easily. So I no doubt expect it's going to be a well-supported game. The question is can Indiana continue it right now? Because this is something we haven't seen in a long, long time. And if Indiana hopes to compete for that double bye, if they hope to be a top 4 seed, this is absolutely one of those games you've got to get because you lost to them at home earlier this year. That 3-game stretch to start the new year just absolutely shackled Indiana. And they, as great as this run has been here in the last couple of weeks, you've got to make up for those losses at home if you want to have a chance to compete for the title, if you want to have a chance to compete for the double bye. And there is no better way to erase a home loss than going on the road and stealing it right back from them. So it's going to take some toughness, and it's certainly a whole lot more winnable than what I had felt it was going to be last time we played them. And I'm looking at Northwestern after that game against Purdue. They have a 1-day shorter turnaround than Indiana does following their last game. It looked like they had a hell of a scout drawn up for the Boilermakers that took a lot of effort from them. So I'm curious to see just how effective Northwestern is coming off of probably the biggest win in program history for them, quite frankly.
Oh, without question. They've never beaten a number 1 team. They've only been to the NCAA tournament once. That was in 2017. They pretty much cemented, I think, their place in the tournament this year. They just hit the top 25 rankings. So great job for Chris Collins, but Indiana needs to take care of business tomorrow night. Chronic, can't thank you enough, brother. As always, it is riveting and fun conversation. Look forward to doing it again next week.
Hey, we'll catch you then. You guys have a great week.
You too. Chronic Hoosier joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda. Make sure you go to andymorehonda.com and find all the best in new and used vehicles, in addition to Metalworks Brewing Company, a part of the Endeavor Hospitality Wow Club. You can go to Metalworks Brewing Company right off the square in Bloomington, or it's served in all of the Endeavor Hospitality restaurants. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for
all right, I've also got to go.
Well,
what happens when you go longer than you should?
I will.
Well, I get confused. So when were we supposed to get out?
When I texted you about 12 minutes ago.
Man, I don't think the freaking volume is on my damn text messages.
Because we were originally going to go really short back whenever we first started that segment. Then you pulled Chronic on right when he came on, and you did about that was a long ass segment.
When I saw him come on, I thought that it was his segment.
No.
Oh, well. All right. I'll see you guys Thursday.
My bad.
All right. So we'll do 2 short
I'll explain to everyone that I was.
No, you don't confused. Need to. You're fine. I mean, you can explain why Dustin's
gone. Why Dustin's gone. Yeah. Damn it. I need to just let him host one day by himself. Take a day off. I can't. Oh, it's hard to do. It's so hard for me to do. It eats at me. Need to break. Still have 2 more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What the hell is with my god dang? I swear I don't hear notifications. Okay. You're turned up all the way. What is that? Were notifications muted? It doesn't even say what something is. Ringtone up, media up, system up, notifications up. Pooh. Plus I have earphones in though. That's what sucks about not having a separate line of communication. You know what I mean, Vern?
I mean, we do have one.
Well, if that happens again, don't be afraid to call me. I'll mute. I'll stop the call, but I'll see
what it means.
I'll see that it's you. And I'm like, oh yeah, he must have texted me.
All right, here we go.
Brewing, Metalworks Brewing Company. Bring your passion and your thirst.
This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Yeah. Welcome back. It's a happy Valentine's Day to you. Got my red on. Hope it's a happy Valentine's Day for you. Man, it's been a fun one. Indiana has a shot tomorrow night to take another step in their quest for a Big Ten title. Indiana women's team did that last night as they continue to win. Super Bowl. The Colts have a new coach. Shane Steichen, officially, the former Eagles offensive coordinator. Now going to take over the Colts. Shocking. They didn't hire Jeff Saturday. I can't believe it. I'm shocked. I cannot believe it. What do you think? What are your thoughts? Do you care? I think most people are wanting to talk about Indiana. They're on here right now, but we'll have Matt Taylor on Thursday, and we'll talk about this hopefully, but I'm sure he won't be able to talk about it, John, because if you remember, it's always until it's sent out officially.
But we'll be able to talk with Bob Kravitz about it tomorrow.
Well, I think that, you would think, and it's usually they can't do it officially because they have to complete background checks and all this. You would think all of that crap would be done before they can make a decision. Why in the hell would you make a decision and go through all that, all the time, all the trouble, all the expense, and not have all that laid out and know already? That's just too much waste of manpower and money to not do that.
Yeah, I agree. It's pretty silly.
It's a nuts. What else? Let's see. Oh man, I had the schedule for tonight's Big Ten games, which there's only one game tomorrow. No, I think there's only one game tonight because one got canceled.
Let's take a look.
I know tomorrow night, I think Indiana might be the only game.
Tonight we have
Illinois at Penn State. You've got Nebraska at Rutgers and Michigan right back at it at Wisconsin. Illinois at Penn State is something to watch because Illinois needs to continue to add their resume. Penn State is on their way out. I don't they're you can't say that they're out yet, but they're definitely on their way out. A loss to Illinois would probably cement that. Nebraska at Rutgers fading a little bit. A few losses, and I'm not saying they're not out of the tournament, but and then you have Michigan at Wisconsin. Those are two teams I don't see making it this year. Tomorrow night on the docket, you only have Indiana at Northwestern. It is the only Big Ten game because Wednesday's game with Minnesota has already been canceled. Minnesota at Michigan State because of the issues they're dealing with there. Again, we thoughts and prayers out to everyone involved with that. And then looking at the schedule ahead for the rest of the week, Purdue plays at Maryland on Thursday. That is a 6:30 game on BTN. And then after that, at 9, you'll have Ohio State at Iowa, which Ohio State obviously out of the tournament, but Iowa needing to continue to win. Saturday, Rutgers at Wisconsin. Illinois comes to Bloomington to take on the number 14 Indiana Hoosiers as they rise to 14 in the AP poll this week. Michigan State travels to Michigan and Penn State to Minnesota. And then on Sunday, Ohio State is at Purdue. That's a win easily for them. The game where everyone's going to be watching is Purdue at Maryland on Thursday. That is a gigantic game. Obviously, if Maryland is able to hang a loss on Purdue, if they are able to upset them, holy cow, we have a Big Ten race that will be unbelievable because if Indiana can do their part, win out, and get to the end of the season, and it would become a showdown with Purdue. And if Indiana were to win that game, they'd win the conference because they'd have the tiebreaker.
Break.
We got to take a break. We've got more coming up right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Boy, I heard you say it. I'm like, I'm out. So what do? You go back and edit that out where you say break?
Well, it doesn't go over the air because I have it's a weird little thing on Spreaker where people hear it, but the audio recording is muted, kind of like right now. That's how it works in between commercials.
Oh my God.
Isn't that beautiful?
But I wish we could do that amongst all of us.
Yeah, I don't know how possible that is.
Well, we need to find out if it is, because that would eliminate, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Check into that. I tell you what, that's stuff you can have Mason do.
Is Mason good with that kind of thing?
Yeah, and Mason and Joe. Yes, Mason and Joe. I mean, seriously, stuff like that to make it better, that would be incredible. I hate not being able to communicate privately, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, man, it is a... fun day. Dylan Sin coming on is going to be cool again.
Yeah, that will be nice.
Super Bowl was watched by 113 million viewers.
right. We have about 5 minutes here to close out.
Southern Eateries. With quality, local, and organic food as their main focus, Southern Stone strives to always provide their guests with an exceptional dining experience. With weekly specials, quick, attentive service, Southern Stone Restaurant provides delicious 5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by K-Bello. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. I hope you get some flowers or you gave some to your sweetie, whoever that is. Thinking about my daughter, Kylie. Got her flowers yesterday. I wanted to make sure they arrived down at Oxford, Mississippi at Ole Miss. The former Eagles captain, Chris Maragos, was awarded $43.5 million in a lawsuit over a career-ending injury. The former Eagles safety and special teams teamer, Chris Maragos, awarded that in a medical malpractice lawsuit in connection with his career-ending knee injury, in which he had a torn PCL. They did some surgery, but it didn't heal, and they allowed him to go forward with his training. And they had people up on the stand, witnesses like Nick Foles, Jordan Hicks, crazy, but $43.5 million, not bad. And you don't have to play football. So there's that. As I mentioned, Jim Caldwell, former Colts coach, Jim Caldwell is hired by the Panthers as a senior assistant. So there's news. In addition to, as I said, the Colts hiring their coach, Shane Steichen, from former offensive coordinator from the Philadelphia Eagles, who just lost 38-35 to Kansas City in the Super Bowl. His offense produced 407 yards of total offense, though. So we'll see. And not bad. It's probably a direction I think Colts fans will be happy about. I think that there's not a lot of bad with that. Seems like a good choice, but you don't know. I mean, I don't think he's been a head coach, so you never know how it's going to work out, but we'll see. Hopefully it does. We'll look forward to talking to Matt Taylor about that on Thursday, the voice of the Colts, when he joins us. So Steven says Northwestern will be a tough out. Robert says the showdown is coming. Of course, that's Indiana traveling to not Northwestern. That's the showdown tomorrow night, but I'm talking about the one in West Lafayette that looms a little later. And it's a good thing that does not end this season. They have a couple games after that. That would be a very emotional deal to deal with. But I think I've been having this feeling. It's odd. I don't think Indiana, it's not that they cannot catch Purdue for the Big Ten championship. They just need help. Can Maryland beat Purdue? Sure they can. Will they? I don't know. We'll find out. We'll watch the game. And if they do, then boy, we're going to have something to talk about and get after it. But I think this Indiana team is giving me vibes. I mean, I've never said this about an Indiana team. They're giving me vibes, and especially looking at the conference, of a team that can win Indiana's first Big Ten tournament title. They're coming together at the end of the season. Their defense is gelling. They are playing phenomenal. If they can get a guy or two back just for the bodies, they're going to have those, I think, to accomplish that. I don't know that they can do that the way they did against Michigan with that short rotation. Maybe, but I think they're going to need a few more bodies because of the different type teams you play. We'll see. It's going to be fun, though, regardless. It's going to be an absolute hell of a tournament. We've got to get out of here for the day, but it has been another fun one. I cannot thank Mike DeCourcy enough, of course. A big thanks to Chronic Hoosier as well. Always fun having those guys on, but especially with Mike, great conversations, and look forward to more tomorrow as Bob Kravitz joins us. We'll talk about Indiana and the Colts, but he's been covering Indiana a lot here of late. Of course, Kyle Nedrip from the Indy Star joined us, and the Hall of Famer Rick Bozich as well. So plenty more to get to there. Cannot thank you guys. Most of all, without you, we've got no reason to be here. And I'm grateful, sincerely grateful for each and every one of you, whether you're up in the region listening on WJLB or down listening in Evansville on the Ref 97.7 or 89.9 in Marengo, or just on YouTube around the world. We appreciate you and love you guys. Go out. Happy Valentine's Day. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.